One of these small ones for like miking.
We had the same model as you stand, right to the top. And afternoon, we put up the silver, it had the lamination.
Right from the get.
And you never got it fixed. So I actually rolled it down to the dealer to see what it was involved, you could fix it. I didn't. While I was down there, I saw 19. That is a roof. So it's the interior space. Yeah.
Sometimes things like that.
Yeah.
That was the whole thrust of it. I remember the chart. Monday's off the calendar. Away from the computer.
Going bigger.
Bambi's.
You went with the outdoors.
Yeah. Little flickers coming, grams and I hope so. I hope we have more.
You know, Tom's out of town.
Yeah. He's not out of town, he's out of cousin Greece.
Son of
You're thinking of that. You did a great job.
Had a message.
I'm very proud of you. You know, expressed an interest in great fishing.
We did.
Yeah. He's
okay with that. As you should
He's down by Bowlers. Further drive. And he's also got a place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know either.
No, there is no requirement. This is all
Just representing.
and there's no requirement. So we'll see. Okay, baby, look at this.
What's on the agenda?
I'm gonna have to work. 3 beers. I know Graham's not coming.
All right, Jeff James is not.
Flick is on her way. She texted me this morning. So I think we're okay.
You say 6 is the minute.
Right, you ready? Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday, August 11th meeting of the Harbor Commission. It's great to see a full house. I hope everybody signed in. We can.
There is no sign.
Oh, there is no sign-in sheet?
It's not required.
It would be nice to know. Victor, you want to do a roll call, please?
Yes. Fred Rockwitz.
Here.
Bill McCullough.
Here.
Jim Bartlett.
Here.
Dick Schiller.
Here.
Aaron O'Donnell. Here. And Tim Fletcher Rice.
Here.
We also have Laura Coors by Zoom. She's allowed to speak, of course, but she cannot vote through Zoom.
Great. So we have a quorum.
Yes.
First item on the agenda is approve the minutes from our August 11th meeting, which is in your packet. Anybody have any corrections, additions, deletions, subtractions, additions? Whatever?
I don't have my copy. Towards the end, I noticed a typo, but it was not of any consequence.
Raise our page.
Maybe next time. Not concerned. Okay.
Nobody else, anything else? And I'd entertain a motion to accept them as submitted.
So move.
Second. Motion's been made and
Rice, second by Dick Schiller.
hey, Flicka,
Hey,
thanks for coming.
you're welcome. Hi.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Being on all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same for opposed. Thanks for getting those out, Peter. Approval of the agenda. I have a couple items to add. New business. One would be a quick discussion on stadium lighting down at the football field. And also a presentation from Mike about the Point City Yacht Club rendezvous that they'd like to schedule us in June next year, I think. Everybody okay with adding those two items?
So that was Point City.
Yeah, Point City Yacht Club and stadium lighting. Anybody else have anything else they wanted to add to the agenda? We'll approve that then. Public comment. Great to see all the public here on anything that is not on the agenda. Now's the time for you to speak up and let us know what you're thinking. On to old business. Review final draft language for our commercial license, which was included in your packet. We've been through this now for a little bit. I think you kind of want to walk us through this, but it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yep, I was not at that meeting that the Harbor Commission discussed this, but I listened to audio and I did my best in understanding the direction the Harbor Commission wanted to go with the edits. They're pretty simple. But there you have it. The red you see on the screen right there is my edits. So one, we changed vessel to vessels, just a grammar thing there that Michael Esposito had brought up at the last meeting. We eliminated talk of jet skis and wave runners because personal vessels are much broader than that. So we just got rid of that example. And if you look at section 3.1, we changed it to the city manager or city manager's designee, which often is the harbor master, may issue such commercial licenses after review and approval by the Harbor Commission at a special meeting held in April or May. We specified April or May because we talked about moving up the approval date for those commercial licenses. Right now, we usually approve them in June, and some of the commercial businesses have expressed that's kind of late in the season to approve them, so they want to approve them a little earlier in the season. And that essentially is that for 3.1, nothing in 3.3 or 3.2 other than vessel instead of vessels. And then 3.4, we changed it to city will annually review and set seasonal license fees payable by April 1st of each year.
I did go through this also, and I think you caught all points we discussed.
So as well as 3.6, sorry, right there on the screen. Appeal the suspension or revocation of a license should first be made to the Harbor Commission and then City Council. That's part of that discussion where it doesn't have to go to Harbor Commission, but generally the council will redirect these things back to the Harbor Commission for the Harbor Commission's advice. So we use should instead.
Comments from the table?
The only question I had was in approving the commercial license.
Which one again?
This is back to 3.1.
Okay.
I just was curious what criteria is used. Is it pretty well described in the plan? I looked at it and I didn't see a lot of detail in terms of how it's determined if that designate, if they're eligible for the commercial license.
Well, from my understanding, it's the Harbor Commission will review it based on the use congestion of the harbor and seeing if that use fits. I think that's kind of the spirit of this, but we haven't gone into details there. Before we had a limit of 2 commercial licenses, but in practice we've had 4.
Right.
So my idea thinking was that the Harbor Commission will look at the licenses we have and see if it fits with what we want to see and it can happen down there. But it is not, you're right, it's not specifically spelled out.
So it's just case by case is what you're saying?
That's how we've done it in the past, and the reason being is you just really never know what's coming. I mean, who would have thought we'd have as many kayaks as we have out there? And if we tried to spell out every use that might fall into a commercial thing, we would certainly miss some. So we view them individually on this.
So it's never been an issue. So we always push back on it or anything.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think any issue or feedback from people that came to City Hall looking for a license that weren't either accommodated or understood why they weren't. So.
No, we've never had that.
Okay.
So I can understand where you're going with this, but trying to spell it out would probably as difficult as leaving it the way we're doing it.
Well, it must be working if we're not getting any pushback.
Any other questions? From any other commissioners? Victor, if we approve this, it would next go to city council for approval on that. I think this clears up some of the, and kind of freshens up the language in this, so there's no further discussion. If there's a motion to approve this, now's the time.
Can I just ask a quick question about a wording in the first paragraph, the charter boats? Does that include fishing charters that aren't included? I just wasn't clear on that.
Yes.
So-
Fishing and sailing, whatever the charter use is.
They do not need a license, is that correct? Or am I reading?
Yes, those are so commercial businesses other than ferry boats or cruise ships or charter boats, because I think there's a different section of our
There is.
rules.
Oh, is there? Okay,
Licenses.
Yes,
okay.
that covers, it describes those limits and talks about what the
Okay.
requirements are.
Perfect. I just didn't understand what that meant.
Anybody should make a motion, yea or nay on this
I
stuff?
do, I move to approve. Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion at the table? Victor, you want to do a roll call vote, please?
Yep, Fred Rockowitz,
Yes.
Tim Fletcher Rice,
Yes.
Flicker Reagan,
Yes.
Dick Schiller,
Yes.
Karen Stroud Donnelly,
Yes.
Jim Bartlett,
Yes,
Bill McCullough.
Yes,
super. Thanks for the work on this, Victor. When will that be coming to city council?
I'll probably take it to council on November 1st.
I should be in town. I'll try to do my best to get there, so. Next item on old business, review harbor plan data collected by John Baker and his discussion of the next steps. So, John, thank goodness you were able to jump on this stuff, so we had able to get a picture of what's happened in the harbor. Well, the harbor was still full of boats on this thing. Victor, would you like to have John run through this?
Yeah, please, yeah, this is his baby.
I don't think you need to go through verbatim on this thing, John, but kind of maybe hit on the high points. Let us know how you put it together, so those in the audience who are familiar with this know what's going on. And
Well, several of the tables that I put in here I used, there were copies of what Dick Babcock had put in his report 18 years ago. So, I just tried to fit them in as they were appropriate. I made two complete passion tours around the harbor in my boat. It's slow speed, counting moorings, counting docks, boats on moorings, boats on docks, and as many personal watercraft on the beaches and up on the docks as I could see to do that. Drove over to Bay Harbor to talk to the harbor master, went to Petoskey to talk to the harbor master to get data about their docking facilities and their capacity and their occupancy rates. And then compared this data to what was in the previous harbor plan data information. And there was a little bit of confusion in the previous plan. Dick I thought had drawn the limits, it had stopped counting at city limits at Artesian Avenue. But then there was some reference to counting beyond that to the weekly dock. So some of my percentages vary because of that, because I wasn't sure which you've done, because there was some contradiction in these numbers. My numbers, I think, are accurate, but the percentages, in one case, I think I said there was a 9% increase when there might have been a 20% increase, just depending on which numbers Dick was using that were used in the last plan. But overall, the number of moorings on the North Shore going down through Weekly has increased significantly. There are a lot of private moorings down there, many more than there were 18 years ago. The number of moorings on the South Shore, on the Harbor Point side, hasn't increased too much, but the number of dock slips has increased quite a bit. There are more docks there, and the docks that are there hold a lot more boats. And there are a couple more private docks, the Graham Dock, and there's at least one on Marty Sutter's dock that's bigger, right in town, that are holding a lot more boats than they did 18 years ago. And the city, I think, holds a few more than they did 18 years ago. So there are increases in almost every capacity. Snowboarding is almost non-existent in the harbor. I counted over 100 kayaks and stand-up paddle boards just by cruising around in my boat, and I'm sure that I missed some. And the city stores 72, so really they're, just in those two counts, they're almost 200. 76.
Somewhat. Yeah.
So they're almost 200 kayaks and personal watercraft that we know of. I have one at home. I have two, actually I have several at home, but we don't count this, and I think a lot of other people do too. So that number has increased substantially. The number of launches per day has increased. The LA's program at Irish's is large. And just the number of boats going through the launch ramp has increased substantially. So there's a lot of boats in the harbor, and there are different types of boats. The majority of the boats are in the 18 to 23, 24 foot powerboat range. And your sailboats is down. The day I counted boats on the water, by mid-afternoon, there were 40 boats that were active, and by active, 15 of them were beached on the end of Harbor Point. But I count that as active.
Yeah,
They've been active to get there, and they're pretty active to get over. But that's 40 boats on the water. And mid-August is actually a little bit late. If I'd been a week earlier, I think there would have been more, on a nice weekend day. So those numbers are higher than they were in the count for the last report. So that in the Petoskey Marina and Bay Harbor Marina are full. And Bay Harbor actually has increased capacity because their yacht club has full capacity now, as well as the municipal dock over there.
Can I ask a question? When you counted the boats active, where did you draw the line in terms of where the harbor ended? Did you do it at Artisan or Artesian?
No, I went all the way, and I tried to find that a little bit in my numbers. I went to the Weekly Dock primarily, but then I tried to add what was between the Weekly Dock and the Roaring Brook Dock.
Okay.
Because those boats are in the harbor. They use them.
They're in and out of the harbor. I
Technically, they're
understand.
moored out of the harbor, but they certainly come into the harbor, especially the
That makes
boats.
sense. Yeah, absolutely.
They're all
Okay.
relatively small boats. And that's where some of the differences from what was done 18 years ago. The numbers then were a little bit confusing, and there are a lot. And I know just from working at Irish's, there are a lot more moorings down there now, and a lot more shore stations than there were 18 years ago.
I had a question on that, John. Those moorings east of Artesian Avenue, are those all privately
Yes,
owned? So they can put them in if they want to?
Yeah.
So the city doesn't have anything to do with that?
Just like the Harbor Point ones.
right.
The docks too are like that?
The docks are all, the docks, if they're seasonal docks, if they're removable, temporary, I don't think they need permits. Yeah, there aren't any permanent docks down there except for the Weekly Dock and the Roaring Brook Dock. Yeah, that's right.
John, on your count of boats, did you include the lasers restored on the side lawn of the boat shop?
No, I didn't. I counted the yacht club boats. There were, the ones that the sailing school uses. Lasers, they're I think 15 or 18 lasers.
Yeah.
Up on the grass, between Irish and yacht club.
Yeah, one of the interesting things to me was looking at the lasers this summer versus 2002 when the last one was done, and the reduction in that size of the fleet, but the incredible increase in number of kayaks.
Yeah. I had the laser count, and I frankly, I just forgot to put it in. I did count them. And I didn't forgot to put it in.
I have another question for you. The total number of dock slips that you pulled out here, available to the public is 425, but doesn't that include like Irish and Wallstrom? So are they really available to the public? Are there transient docks in
they're
there?
not private docks owned by riparians. And that's how I distinguish them. The boathouse docks are included in that. you know, if somebody joins the boathouse club, and I considered that a public.
So it'd be considered public by you?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I mean, my questions are related to, do we have enough, you know, throughout this whole, the whole harbor? That's really my question.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you went in to talk about the number per, you know, acre, what was it, 2 per acre that you called out?
Yeah, and
2
that's,
boats, yeah, and that was kind of interesting to me, because I don't know how we compare to other communities that have all this water that we have.
Yeah.
Because I do get that comment a lot, we need more, you know, we need more seasonal docks, more moorings, you know, because their waiting lists are forever, you know, down, you know, huge numbers. So
oh,
I
no,
was kind of curious about that. Do we have a plan to really compare this to what other harbors are doing? in
I
our
don't,
area?
Karen, that was it. I talked to the Michigan boating industry people, and those numbers I used were the ones that were used in the 18-year-old survey, and they tried to get updated numbers from the DNR, and the DNR didn't provide it. And those are for inland lakes. And so they don't really apply to us because we have so much more water. So it's, but I put them in because they were in the previous report. I almost didn't include them, but I didn't. I did really only because they were younger, but I don't think they're pertinent because of the amount of water that we have to use.
Right. I mean, I think it's really interesting. It would be interesting to compare. Have you done this before? I mean, this is my first year on the commission. Have we looked at our usage, you know, as you use per acre or whatever? Has that been compared to other marinas in northern Michigan or in Michigan?
I don't understand your question. I mean, there is no other place like Harbor Springs in northern Michigan because of the
Because of the
half
harbor?
mile opening we have on the east entrance to the harbor. And I think you can get a real feel for what density does to the facility if you go and look at other places like we all do when we travel. I mean, you wouldn't have to count boats in Round Lake and Charlevoix to know that the density there is significantly higher than it is here.
Right,
The question is, in my mind, you know, is that what you want?
right. That is the question.
And you can put numbers on it all day long, but it's more a matter of feel and than anything else. But we're unique because of the open east side that we have on.
But I was talking to my daughter about, we were cruising around one day and looking at all the boats on the end of the point. And she said, you know, when you were a kid, did you water ski off the end of the point? And I said, no, why wouldn't? You know, we all water ski from our own docks. There was no wake zone, but there was regular traffic. So to me, I mean, I approve of the no wake zones, but they're restrictive. I think, and I'd hate to see them expanded. You know, just from my perspective, which is, you know, I started boating here 65 or 70 years ago. It's like maybe not as long ago as I can, but
Well, yeah, but we skied right off the beach,
yeah,
you know, and we were at Cottage 100, so way inside the no wake zone.
yeah, but there wasn't any. And so it's, to me, it's, you know, the restrictions are significant compared to what they used to be.
Yeah, I'm just curious if we might want to look a little further into whether or not we're using the space as well as we can. You know, do we need to create more space for boats? I know a lot of people would be against that, but I do get that question a lot, asking that question. So I don't know where that starts or comes from, but I think it might be worthy of a little bit more study.
Yeah.
I think that's a question that's next in our process after staff puts this plan, this data into the plan, and then we come back, if you see the outline I have there in April, to talk about the goals and objectives and what we want to change about the plan, our goals, our objectives, and about the harbor, if anything. I think that's next in the process. I think right now our goal is to review the data, see if we want more data, if this data is good enough, and, you know, if the outline that we have for going forward, hopefully for an October, November 2022 approval of the new harbor plan. I don't want to stifle the discussion, but I think that's for the next step of, you know, what we want the harbor to look like. I think that's the next step in the process.
So is there a need for a meeting of the Harbor Commission between now and our next scheduled meeting, which I think is March, is that right?
Our next scheduled meeting, regular scheduled meeting, is normally July.
July.
We'd have to hold a
No,
special.
yeah.
meeting.
It would be June.
Geo.
And we've already discussed with the commercial license that we just talked about having a meeting in
In April.
April.
April,
Yeah,
May.
right.
And I think that would be our first stab at
Yeah,
looking at the next step on this, if this is the way we go with it.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Karen, is there some other data that we could generate now that you think would provide meaningful information that we would need to look at this as we go on? And I can tell you, having gone through, this is my third time going through this, the revision of the plan, is that at every time we've done this, there's been considerable demand to build more.
Mhm.
So that over the 30 years of this, I haven't seen any change in that. There's always requests to build more.
Mhm.
No matter what we build, there will always be for it. The question is, in my mind, is the balance that we have, given all the other constraints that we have, because right now you're only looking at it through the water perspective and a demand side of it. But how does that fit in with the big picture of what Harbor Springs wants our community to look like on the water? And how does an increase in density, if you decide to do it, impact folks who are using the place? And that's what we'll be talking about once we get to the goals and the objectives and those kinds of things. So I don't know what other information or data we would want to go for over the winter that would help us deal with those goals and objectives in there.
I guess I would be curious what other marinas are doing in northern Michigan, if it's available. And if it's not, and you have to be constructed from nothing, then that would be difficult, I know, but I don't know if the state collects that kind of data. I'm not sure, you guys might know that a lot better than I do, John and Michael and Victor. But it would be interesting to see how we're using our available space to accommodate as many boats as we can.
I'm not aware of anything we could get from the state, Michael or
We
Victor,
probably have to call the municipalities individually, probably Petoskey, Charlevoix.
because the real restrictive piece of the puzzle are the land support that additional water facilities need.
Mhm.
And if you follow what's been happening in Boyne City for the last 3 years as they've gone through an expansion project down there, it really wasn't the water. They had the space and the public property to add the dock to it. It was how they were going to handle the additional requirements that the additional boats would need.
Mhm.
That's the challenge, and especially so here in Harbor Springs because of the lack of land that we have to build those kinds of facilities.
Right, because so much of it's private, the waterfront.
Right.
Yeah.
And, is it right to take away, what's the balance?
Mhm.
Park versus boats or parking lots versus more, I don't know, that's what we'll be talking about. Yeah.
This is out of sequence, but as we go through this process, one of the things I'm going to suggest we do in creating the new harbor plan is have a historical section that goes back to it started off with, it was chaos out there. There was no mooring field. Anybody and their brother was dropping engine blocks and whatever into the lake, and there was no management. And so this has always been about balancing competing interests and trying to maintain, or some sense of order and all that sort of thing. And I don't want to go into depth at this point in time, but I think as part of this process, a review of how we got here, where we're going, hits and misses, and some of those sorts of things I'd like to have included in the document, just as a so that the institutional knowledge that's at the table at this point in time continues on into the future.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, the mooring field solved a number of issues because it was chaos, as Bill describes it. But it also led to the development of the theoretical limit line that you see on the current harbor map. Because it was felt at that point in time that there shouldn't be unlimited road.
Mhm.
And so there's some built-in restraints. Not that all of that can't be totally thrown away and done over, but I would be hard pressed to ignore what has worked and kind of help shape the community in the past. But that's why some of that stuff has happened. And Bill's comment is a good one on that, because not everybody at this table was here when it all happened. nor at council. So
Right. So to get back to what you just said, Victor, about staff maybe looking at that, if that's possible, I would ask for that. I think for me, it would be really helpful to see how we compare. I know it's not always apples to apples based on,
what would you compare here?
well, given the size of the space available, like Round Lake or whatever. I mean, I know there's more public shoreline there. I know that makes a difference. How about, what's the density of the moorings there, for example? Or Boyne City, Lake Charlevoix. I think that one might be, at least for me, helpful. But you guys have been on this longer than I have, and if you don't know if that would be that helpful, then, I can let it go. But, I'm just trying to, when you hear people say, I think we need more moorings, we need more docks, we need whatever, how do we respond to that? Why don't we have more? Why can't we have more? And, I know reading through the minutes and of the past, there's a good reason for what we have right here. But is there an ability to have more? And if not, this is why.
I still don't know what research would help answer that question. Because it's the demand on the shore side is, we have, Harbor Springs could eliminate the moorings and run docks out to the middle of the harbor if we wanted to, if the state would allow us to do that.
Wouldn't have any place to put the cars.
Where would you put the support structure that handles that?
Well, I can't
And
answer
do we
that
want to
question.
block the view and change the use of everybody that uses the harbor so that there could be more?
Those are all the questions that would have to be answered.
But I don't know what research that Victor could come up with that would give us science to help support or say that we have more, that we can accommodate more. We
What
can.
we could do, I think, is see if other communities have harbor plans or anything similar and see what kind of harbor documents they have and then provide those for review to see, and then you can maybe use that data to make your own comparisons. Because I don't know, I think what JB's getting at is no two situations are alike, and I agree with that, but I'm sure they have data that's out there. I'm sure they have data that's out there that we could at least provide. We could find, I'm sure they have harbor plans or other types of plans. Yeah.
I know there are people on Round Lake. I think there are too many boats there.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
Sure. Well, that would be
Number one,
really
this is all
helpful.
right
I mean, even that would be
So
helpful.
it wouldn't be difficult to do that. It'd be maybe difficult to make a apples to apples comparison to staff level. I think that's something maybe a harbor commission will want to do. But we can search around, see what data there is, what plans there are, what information they have, and send it out. I don't think that'd be too difficult.
That'd be great.
But we wouldn't be able to make, I don't think, any good, strong conclusions from it. I think that'd have to happen here at the harbor commission.
Would it be
table.
helpful to have the information to do that? That'd be great.
Cool. Okay. Any other comments from you, John, on this?
Sure, far away.
Yeah, Lisa Nickel. One thing, as we're talking, Karen, if you don't have an increase in the moorings and the docks, because let's say we think that it has enough with the amount of traffic we want. Problem is, you can't really control Ford Park launching. So if you have less, you're gonna have more launchings, you're gonna have more kayaks. I mean, there's still gonna be a lot of traffic out there. That just as John was saying with his survey, that it is up from what it was. And there's a lot more personal small craft, between paddle boards. But so that even if, if we added more, that'd be great. But even if we don't, that traffic's still gonna be going. We're gonna have more launchings, more traffic. And now with 5 commercial licenses, that's gonna add a lot of pressure down that Ford Park area too, because that's all there. The launchings are there, the commercials there, none of it could be at Zoll. It's all like right there. So that's one thing you guys might wanna look at when you're looking at some of the data from the other ones. Do they even have moorings? How many launch ramps do they have? What kind of traffic are they seeing? Because we do have a lot of traffic, even if we never increase the moorings at the docks. We're still gonna have boat traffic out there. Secondly, I was kind of wondering in the
Let
May.
me just comment on
Yeah,
that
go
for a
ahead,
second.
Jamie.
Fort Park is definitely controllable. Not by the number of boats that get launched on there, but by the number of boats that get parked. And not just on the Fort Park asphalt paved area there between the 2 marinas, but also in the overflow lot that is east of there down at Bay and Zoll. And the beauty of that way of controlling that type of access is that can be done on a year by year basis, depending on the whim of the powers to be as to how that works. So we have a really good control over how many boats would actually get used out through there. And we have never filled up the overflow lot, to my knowledge, down at Fort Park yet. This conversation has been held before, and it's a good one, because it was felt that that would really drive that part of the business. And our launches are up down there, but they're not up by 500% or some crazy number like we are with kayak storage. You know, that's where the real growth is happening.
Right, and we don't want to necessarily control that, I guess. If there's 200 more people that buy kayaks and they want to go kayaking, I want them to do that. They're just gonna maybe have to figure out where to put their car unless it's on top and they drop it off and then go park at their house or they walk down. We don't want to control that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that that's our big spot right there. And regardless of more moorings, we're still gonna have boats. They're gonna launch, they're gonna park somewhere here at the overflow or down there. They're still gonna be out there. So what we're seeing in the last 18 years, it's probably gonna continue up for a little while. That, because we are seeing quite a bit of an increase. So I'm not saying that we need to control that by making less parking, because people are gonna figure it out. And if we have more kayak racks, that would be great. But right now, they're gonna drop their kayaks off or do what they have to do.
I thought your question was orientated to a fear of too much uncontrolled launching through Fort Park.
Not
And
too
that can
much,
be-
just that it's gonna happen because we don't have a lot of more moorings or dockage. So people are still gonna wanna get out on the water. And that's the best place to get out. So they're still gonna do it. Yeah.
I hope they do. That's what that is down there. And, but the point to that is that that's not a funnel development that is not controllable by the city if it wishes. If there's too many boats out there, we can control that. And that's something you can't do with any other road. So you can have a handle.
Okay, my second item I would like to ask about is in the May to July section on the key questions for public survey, was there anything about the two-wake system we have out there that was in the public survey or for the master plan with the Harbor Commission? Or is that something that can come out on some key questions for the public?
I think that's something you should bring up, when we get to that point. Because there'll certainly be public input. That's what we're all about with this.
Okay, right, that's what I mean, May and July coming up, so that could be one.
Yeah,
So that could be one of the things that are there. And it'd be nice if it was earlier, so it could get implemented next year, but.
Well, like a lot of things that happen in town in the winter, if we were to do that, the seasonal residents would be upset because we did it in the dark of night and we didn't involve them. So it just takes time.
But I think most of the people I've spoken with are agreeable with it. I haven't heard anybody tell me that they're, oh yeah, we ought to keep it. And I haven't heard that.
Agreeable with what?
Having not a two-wake system, just no wake for the whole harbor.
We fought long and hard over many, many years to have a unique situation here so that people can be protected from the wakes of the big boats that come in here and will knock you off your feet, and still have an area where somebody can operate a small vessel like a water ski boat at a planing speed without having to go out into the big water where basically water skiing most days out on the big bays.
But why do you need that? No other
To
harbor.
accommodate.
You're right. No other harbor does that.
So why
And that's
do we
because
need
Harbor Springs is unique.
Well, there's tons of water. It was smooth out there the other day. I was out there kayaking. Go.
But it's always smooth with the prevailing west wind in the harbor.
It is, but sometimes it's down by the weekly and stuff.
I think these are good questions.
Yeah,
for-
I guess
when we get
that's,
to
I
that
just want to
date.
make sure that they're.
But I think the
brought
whole
up
point
at
is,
some point.
there's been a lot of discussion and history with that. As John said, they used to water ski from the dock down in there. There was resistance to the 2-level deal, and we had to convince the state that that was the right thing to do. We are the only community in the US side of the Great Lakes that has a 2-level system.
Right, but 18 years ago, maybe that was a good idea, but I don't think it is now.
Well, let's talk about it. Because there will be people who will support it the other way too. That's how it works. Yes. Now, we're running this meeting kind of as an open thing, so I'm trying to be generous with the questions. We'll continue to do that. Yes.
Dave McVicker, and on her point, that area was also designed, if I'm correct, to accommodate all the homes and people that use a small vessel as transportation out to their house and their cottage, to get back and forth across the harbor also. And it's a valid point. I mean, people still want to use a calm water to do other sports besides kayak. So as John said and everybody else, you used to be able to go right from the ice house out to the end of the point, and ski in that mooring field on beautiful glass all the time. And now you got to wait for an east wind.
Good point. And that will come up, I'm sure, over the summer. And I don't know that anybody here is adamantly opposed to a change to that, but we certainly want to discuss it and make sure that all the interested parties understand what's going on and what's involved. So Karen, we'll see if the city can come up with something else that we can look at for that.
Yeah.
But I think the best way to get a feel for what you're looking for is to visit those marinas, and I know you have over the summer, to get a feel for them. And I'm aware of no specific data or state requirements. And we are very unique here in Harbor Springs, that's all. So.
Thanks, Judy.
Yeah. A couple of comments on the report with that. John, thanks for doing the work on it.
Yes.
Over the 18 years to have an increase of 9% in available slips is an interesting number. That's for sure. And then seeing the number of private moorings and dockages increase at the rates they did, which is also very interesting. And so is the number of kayaks to shift from windsurfers, which we never had that many of, to the kayaks and stand-up paddleboard stuff is a tremendous changes. So we have gone through some significant changes over the 18 years, which we all know. I mean, you feel it every day when you're out there.
Sure.
And when you're boating, and so this just kind of proves what your senses are already trying to tell you. So Victor, let's talk a little bit about the rough outline on this planning. Does everybody just makes sense to everybody on it?
Yeah, it's not set in stone, it's just a hope, this is, we could come, March can come and I could, have a different idea, but this is just, general idea was to get it done by the end of 2022. We'll be wrapping up our master plan soon, so staff will have a little more time to work on this. So, unless there's, this is flexible though, that's.
I think that's a good outline to get started with. Everybody else okay with that? And I think it is important in the public comment period to happen over the summer when everybody is here. So that's just how much time it's going to take. Victor, is there anything you need officially from us to move ahead on this kind of thing?
No, I don't need, there's no.
And I appreciate the comments. There's going to be plenty of time next summer to talk about this stuff. So write them down and think about it. Meg, thanks for your work on this. It worked out real well.
Thanks, John.
Really good, John. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Victor, is Harbor Master Building recommendations. Talked about that a little bit last September. Let us know what you're looking for here.
So I think earlier in the year, we had talked about whether or not want to continue recommending that Harbor Commission wants to continue recommending a new harbor master building. But then I remember earlier in the year, we looked at the revenue coming in and the cost of the building and improvements that need to happen and wanted to put it on pause to see where we're at. And then this year to see if that still makes sense to continue recommending a new building or to recommend something else, which would be a renovation of the current building, et cetera. So what we, I guess, need to go from our planning perspective here as city staff to know when we go through our capital improvements planning and recommending budget to council is, I guess a final decision. I know we've talked about this several times at the Harbor Commission, but I think the realization of the amount of revenue we have coming in versus the cost of this new building might put a pause into whether or not we want to do a new building or not. So I know, and JB, I know you had some thoughts on that as well. So I just, if you want to take this opportunity to talk about that or not.
Part of this is driven by the fact that our latest budget that was adopted for this year only showed an excess in the harbor funds about $5,000 over revenue. And the year before, council asked us if, how we intended to pay for that building. And historically, the Marina has always generated somewhere between $50,000 and maybe $85,000 of excess income that we could bank, which is why we were able to build up the waterfront fund to the level that it is now, which I think is somewhere around 6.5 or 700,000.
50,000.
Yeah, like that. And that number is important because we self-insure for a large part of the docks, and with our ice exposure in the winter, you never know when you can get wiped out, and well, $750,000 looks like a good amount. Fixing a dock eats up that money real quick, so we've tried to be prudent and make sure that we had enough money to help out, make sure that happens. And our last recommendation to council was, we said, maybe in 4 or 5 years, if we can put away $50,000 to $80,000 a year, then we're in a position to start working on this building again, if that's how our funding is going to be. But with the last budget, if that were to come true and we only generated $5,000, well, then that building and everything else is totally out of sight. Now, I know the city budget's conservatively on income and aggressively on expenditures, and we'll probably have more of that in there. Plus, we had a good year at the dock, so we'll have a little bit more cash in there. But with building costs the way they are, I don't know how we're ever going to pay out of these funds for that $1 million plus building.
Unless there's a bond. And but that's a long-term hit to the fund.
Yeah, last time we did a bond, we paid for the east dock, but we paid for it because of the additional revenues that were generated by the seasonal dock engineer, so that made sense. We carried that over a 20-year period and paid that off. So personally, to kind of maybe daylight some folks here don't know how we got to where we are, the whole push for the new building was really because we wanted laundry facilities, because the place up the hill went out, and our voters looked for that kind of a service. And we arranged a meeting with the state DNR Waterways Commission at the office here in town that I was at, and the mayor at the time was at, and the harbor master was at, and they said, no problem, we'll give you 80% of that, and it's a done deal. Well, when we finally got the plan up, went to them, they said 50% and all kinds of strings. So the deal they gave us really wasn't a good one. So rethinking that from my perspective personally, and I said this at the last meeting, with the efforts that the Marina Park Committee have been putting in down there, which were great this year, by the way. And I'm down there and I watch that almost every day. That was well received, particularly because they finally had a place for shade, because people look to get out of the sun in the summertime. And the same thing when the weather is a little inclement. They're ducked under there, or they're looking for places to go hide out. So one thought I had was to incorporate whatever improvements happen at the Marina Park with some type of a shed structure that you can see through, doesn't block much of the view. Put it over in the northwest corner, change that entryway into the pier, which is part of the parking plan in the new building design layout anyway. And put the public restrooms under there, along with some picnic tables and ways to get out of some shade from out of the sun and out of the rain. That would allow the harbor master building to renovate the existing public bathrooms and turn those into laundry facilities. And both of those projects could be done for a reasonable amount of numbers that we could pay for ourselves, rather than having to go crazy on that. So that's just me thinking out loud. That's, but I think it's an idea worth thinking about, because it satisfies what the public down there, I think, is looking for, and what we need to offer our customers at this marina. So,
Where would that money come from? Where would you think that money would come from?
well, I think our part of it could come out of the fund that we have. If we could keep, $400,000 in there as an insurance plan, I would feel comfortable with that kind of a number in case we have some catastrophic event happen to us. And we could pay, we'd have the cash to pay for our individual there. And I think however the Marina Park works out, but we're not talking about gigantic structures here. So I think you'd have the opportunity to do that for half the cost of what the building will hold, if that fit in with what town wanted to do. I'm not trying to push this on anybody. I'm just trying to kill a couple of birds with one stone and snow to make it work. So I threw that out there last meeting and nobody said a word. So I went, oh, maybe I should bring this up. But I don't see a clear path for us dollar wise with a grant or without a grant. Doesn't make any difference. The numbers are too big to build that building.
At this point fiscally, I've talked with Clerk Whitaker about this, and that makes the most sense, is a better financial option. So.
I can't speak for all of the Marina Park Committee, but we have talked about it at our meetings, and I think we would be pretty amenable to that type of thing. And the park's been a big success this summer. We had our first big event down there. It was real well attended, and I think people are really enjoying it. So the thought of not having a big footprint of the new building there, I think would be great. And I agree with you that northwest corner, I think, would be the spot to put a structure with bathrooms and shelter.
Well, that's good to hear.
Maybe I missed it and I remember the previous discussion. What was
Yeah, I
the-
know, there's a ferry booth. We gotta put a ferry booth.
No,
in.
What was, yeah, what was the estimate previously? When you said the state was willing to fund it, but what was the total investment to achieve that before that you guys had determined?
Wasn't it over?
The building, like a building.
It's way over a
The
million.
building alone was about 1.2 million at that time.
That actually was 2 years
Yeah.
ago. I have no idea what.
And then there was that did not include the parking lot improvements and other improvements there, sewer that we might have to do. Yeah, so.
And as I recall, the parking lot improvements, they actually increased the spaces that would be available. I mean,
Actually, I think it was net, but it really improved. And this is something I thought was brilliant with her plan, the woman who came up with that. We have issues right now with where the public bathrooms are located. It's on the road. People walk across through the cars, through the parking lots, the bikes come in there, people stop their cars in front of it, it plugs up the whole deal. There's no good alignment, and I think the chief would back me up with this, with the street getting in and out of there is a headache, and that plan that our architects came up with was worth all the effort we went through, because that really solved a lot of issues and made that a much cleaner deal for pedestrians. We all got to realize that the marina takes care of boats, but there's a lot more people that don't boat, that use Bay Street, use the views, park their cars, go shopping, do all the other stuff. So we got to make sure we take care of them in this thing too. And that part of that plan identified that, and I felt really solved a lot of problems. And locating the bathrooms in that spot with the change in that circle drive. Now, Dudley's going to kick my butt, but that fits right in with how that whole thing would go with that. So I think you kill a lot of birds with one stone.
Yeah, I stuck my head in today and I really feel that we could renovate that building and hopefully, yes, there would be monies to move those public restrooms because it does get quite busy back there with bikes, as you said, and everyone else. But I really think that building has some opportunities that we could put in some laundry there for all the different harbor marinas I've been to. It's a really good sized space and you could even probably have a small boaters lounge in there, which as you said, sometimes you have to get off that sailboat and just go somewhere and it's raining. It's gonna be somewhere like that. So I really think that we should look at the renovation aspect.
It's an opportunity, so. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think it's great.
I just put my name in the paper and I didn't want it, so you gotta back me up on this.
I know we've talked about it for a long time. I mean, it's been on paper for a long time. Just a question of money. How about a donated toilet program? Maybe get some money that way.
JB, I'm on a Zoom meeting. It's Laura speaking. I know I can't vote. May I speak?
Has anybody ever been able to tell you you can't speak?
Well, yeah, not really, but they don't always listen. Anyway, I think what you're talking about is the solution that we can proceed on. We've wanted the harbor building and it was absolutely lovely what the architects came up with, but the reality is we can't afford it. And it will be so long before we can afford it. We're not solving the needs of our community. So by splitting them into two projects and the harbor building, getting the renovation and the pieces that we're missing at our price tag, we can do that. And the city can help provide the facilities if we, and it's not going to be the $1 million deal that we wish for, but it is a solution for the next future. I agree with you.
It may be a better solution than what we were looking for.
You know, I think that there's some merit to that, Fred. Uses less space, satisfies more needs. And
You haven't done any drawings of, I'd like to see a good drawing of the current layout and either an overlay or just a comparable scale size drawing of the kind of thing you're talking about. I think I agree with the general idea, but you haven't mentioned anything about the size of the areas you're talking about and everything. So I'd just like to know some more there.
I think that's, if there is some consensus that we ought to go down that path, and if the Marina Park folks are on that path a little bit more, and there's some support from council to explore this, then I'm all for it, because we're at a standstill with the rest of this now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as a parks director, my opinion is that this is the best solution, only because Marina Park has had the renovations it's had in the past year, so it's much busier than it used to be. So when you say the bathroom and congestion, that's only going to increase as the events in Marina Park continue, like the Taste and Fall Fest and things like that. So I think it's beneficial for both of us to say, hey, we both use this space. How can we come together and budget it together, as opposed to putting it solely on the Harbor Commission or solely on parks? That way we can both benefit.
It's been the position of this board with, as regards to Marina Park, is that that's something that this board really doesn't want to take a position what happens out there, as long as that activity doesn't diminish our ability to serve our customers on the water side. So you want to put a light show in there that runs till 2 a.m. on Saturday night, then we're gonna balk. So we tried to stay out of that genre with it. But this is a plan that maybe works. It got to be explored to see if it works for both of us, because initially I'm hearing that we're on the right track.
Right. Do we have funds available to create a plan to actually, the $5,000 you mentioned earlier? Can we hire firm to help us create that kind of a plan so we can see what it would look like?
Yes.
Do we need to make a motion to that effect?
I don't know. I guess we've got two council,
Well, I'll bring it to, what I'll do is I'll bring this recommendation to council, and then, we're budgeting for, we're at budget season right now, so we can bring this to council, and then, early winter, if council approves, we can start budgeting for a plan that looks at it. I'm sure Marina Park will also talk about, after hearing this, what, kind of structure they could look at for them, and kind of look at the budget and plans for both of those things. Even though they're separate, they're going to go together if it happens. So council will need to look at budget for planning for both of those at the same time. So yeah, but I'll bring this record. This is where there's a consensus on it. We don't need anything official to create a plan, but I'll take it to council, and council will, say probably yes, let's get a plan.
Karen, personally, because this would have impact on the Harbor Commission because the bathrooms change. I would think it'd be appropriate for us to, at this table, to spend some funds to put that together, but we shouldn't be the only ones that feed that. It's got to come, because these are public restrooms that feed everybody, not just boaters. But I think we ought to be able to do our part on that. And yes, we have the funds where we can do that. But we need a plan on how it's going to work going down the road. And we need some head nods at the council table. And then well, I'm tickled.
I think we should toss this around a little bit more before we start
drawing.
doing that, because there are a lot of interconnected parts there. The placement of a new building in the northwest corner, we're talking about rearranging the parking And I'm pretty sure there's some electrical infrastructure sitting right there that may or may not be affected. And once you start messing with the parking, you've got that whole lot, probably makes sense to do that whole thing all at once, if you're gonna start pulling on that string. And we gotta have the public restrooms up and running before we shut down the public restrooms at the Harbor Master building, so there's.
If it was easy, Bill, we'd have done it.
If it was easy, we'd already done it, that's right.
But I think those are all solvable, affordable plans. That's the key. So did you get your answer on whatever we were talking about there, Victor?
Yes. Thank you.
Really appreciate the input from the floor. That's good. Can I move on to new business? I told Flicker this was gonna take an hour. We got 3 minutes to do the rest of this. New business, Little Traverse Ferry Foundation. It's great of you guys to put that new memorial over at Irish Boat Shop up there on the harbor. Very cool. Now we all know we're a ferry boat town. That's very cool. Anyway, we were just kind of looking to see how your, I'm not picking on you, but to see how your season
Coming
went.
together, I just got the shipping notification, the color should be here in a couple days, and I found a foundry that casts bronze rudders, so that's on order, and we'll be out of here before the ice, I promise that. But I'm sure everybody's aware of the 60 container ships off LA. Everything is backlogged with shipping these days, so I'm doing everything I can. The fiberglass work, Irish has done a wonderful job patching us up, and we're gonna make our way over to Charles Boy's Irish facility for the off season to finish the rest of the necessary repairs on the boat.
That's awesome. Any comment about how the summer went for you? Were you guys?
Actually, we have some proposals and information.
Did they
You want
make
to
it
jump
to?
in, or do you want me to?
I don't think we have anything in our package.
Oh, it didn't make it. I got it to you kind of late, sorry.
Yeah.
Did you,
Try to get it
you didn't get my emails?
this week.
Yeah, with all of this?
I know.
Oh.
Let's see.
Well, here. One of those.
This is October.
Here, we'll do this in the fashion way.
So
You have to share, we only brought a couple of these with us, but
Yes. Yeah.
I thought we were gonna have this on this big screen, but
Much more legible on the big screen, sorry about that.
so Amy ran the operations a lot more than I have this last year. This is our second completed year of running. We've gone through some staffing changes and worked on our operation a little bit. And in the last 2 years, we've seen some areas for improvement and things that we think would be a good addition up here. And we've also seen some opportunities come up recently. So as you know, the ferry boat that we currently operated was a 50-foot fiberglass hull. It really is about the smallest commercial ferry boat that you could possibly find. And I know because I spent a lot of time looking before we engaged, and we spent probably a year in advance in discussions with the Harbor Commission here as to what you were looking for and what would be acceptable. But we made it work, but it's pretty expensive keeping up on the maintenance and repairs with that. And with COVID, some other vessels have come on the market. There's one that should be pictured in that booklet. It's the former Beaver Islander from 1955. It's come back to market. It's 15 feet longer than the current boat we operate and a little bit wider. And what we found is, and I'm sure everybody here understands with the west facing bay that sometimes we get some weather that's inclement, or even though we can operate, it's a matter of comfort for the passengers on the boat. And we want everybody to be as comfortable as possible. And with a size comes a certain degree of comfort, just like when you drive a small car down the road versus driving your SUV or your pickup truck down the road, there's a comfort factor with that. So we're here exploring the possibility, and I'm not saying that's the boat. I'm saying there are boats on the market in that size. That in the commercial ferry business, that is the small size. A lot of them have been upgrading over the years to something that's even larger than that at most of the locations. But Some of these with smaller size ferries are on the market right now, and there's a lot of churn in that. So I wanted to know if there was, we're here gauging your feedback and interest in this, and I'm not suggesting that we bring more people into the community by any stretch, but we're looking for something that offers a better service, a little more comfort in the weather and the conditions that the big lake provides.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at our service, we had about a 23% cancellation due to weather this season versus last year at 3%. The diverse weather is certainly something we can't control. And what we try to operate is, as close to that outer envelope as we can. Obviously, comfort, safety are, first and foremost. But, we had to do a lot of tacking to keep some of our days rolling, just because there was just no way we could go, direct. And that impacts our schedule, and that impacts our, ability to actually carry out the rest of the day. So, with that kind of an impact, really, it's a disappointment, not only to us, but to the guest, when they're standing there at the dock waiting for him, you're not showing up because, the waves are too big, but it's a bigger boat. Overall, we love that little boat. It's been great. We've taken it to other communities, and there's been such a great reception to it. We've taken the kids out this summer. We took the Challenge Mountain Spirit Day camps out. We gave them an experience a couple of times. We've taken the senior centers out. Everyone seems to it's been overwhelmingly positive. The rankings that we have on the website, just all of the data that we've been able to collect has been overwhelmingly positive. Some of the challenges or the misses that we've had are leaving people on the dock because we just don't have enough room. There's more demand than what we can handle. Maybe there's just not enough runs between the Petoskey and River Springs market because we just don't have enough time in a day, and we can't carry that kind of demand, which is generally just in the middle of the day. The limited seating, of course. Bikes, we've had an issue with bike storage. You have a family of 10 and they all want to ride the boat with their bike to ride the path back, but we can only take 6 bikes. So who stays home? There's just little things like that really make a difference in the overall satisfaction. And very understanding. Everyone has been very understanding, but I think it's time that we start looking for something a little bigger.
Just so you guys know the numbers, the boat is licensed for 49, but with the current perimeter bench seating on the boat, it's about 24 seats. We don't have any center seating in there. Part of that is like by the time you get 24 people plus 6 bikes on the boat, it starts to, it's not that we couldn't put more bench seating in there, but then that just kind of, it feels very nice the way it is, but loading it down, I don't know if is the right answer necessarily. And, it's quality of service.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we look at it. And there's easy ways, okay, the next boat may have, this boat we've been bringing 20 to, some days we're sold out, obviously, but.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've put 30 on there and it's very full, and people are we're licensed to 49. We tell them we're licensed to 49. We choose not to go over 30 if at all possible. If it's 2 big groups and they're like all in, we understand. A few of us are standing, we'll take their bikes. Very crowded, we'll do it. But as a rule, we won't.
And capacities are easy to regulate with electronic, everything's online. You got to buy your ticket online.
Yeah.
You don't do any door sales, so to speak. So, if you say, we don't want you to bring 100 people over here, we want 49 as the cap, that's very easy to control and regulate. And we just want to offer a better service to the people. So we're looking for your feedback and on this. And
with the lack of marketing, we still had over 2,600 phone calls this summer. And I'll tell you what, it's a lot, because I answered all of them. I looked at the bill, 16,000 minutes. Can you imagine? I mean, just talking and booking and answering questions and booking and, big parties and memorials and, just everything in between. So it's definitely in demand. And when we're not operating, people literally will call me and ask me, what other boat can they take? Where's our other boat? Who else does this? How do we get out there? And our only answer is a fishing charter. I mean, that's all we really have. So I think there's a great demand for it. I do think that it has to be well controlled and cared for in terms of its growth, because obviously we're only in year 2, but Chris has got extensive business in this, or extensive experience, I should say, in this business. And, I think that we want this to grow. We don't want it to be a Shepler's, obviously with 2 and 3 boats, high speed going back and forth, but I do think that
Yeah, we're not proposing running both simultaneously in this market. I would relocate the smaller boat, probably to Boyne City. We have a lot of positive feedback from participation in their community festivals. And then if there were a problem, obviously this being the primary market, we could bring that over here if we needed to fill in for some reason. But I'm not saying, we're not proposing doubling up anything. So
we just want to throw that out there, move it over. Looking for a recommendation if that's something that we can move forward with exploration and bring to you some potentials. Yes.
Yeah, I had a question. Would a larger boat, you were saying it would be about 15 feet longer than the current one, although in this it says 20, so
Yes.
someplace in that range, I guess. But would you still be able to use the same dock, or does that dock need to be expanded? And will the boat fit and be maneuverable in the spaces available to you?
I think we would have to have that discussion of some sort of reconfiguration. We funded the last dock because that's what we needed to do. And that went, I thought, pretty well, but there were some hiccups of that. And I think we would want a little more professional evaluation of that with more, this was a little more by the manufacturer's recommendation as opposed to an independent engineer, which we would probably need to consult with if we were to step up half size here to what we'd be proposing. And I don't think it's too much more in the way of docking, more so a way of the proper pilings for secure, it's a little more in the tonnage department, so we want something that's solid for that.
But to answer your question about maneuverability, this little boat that we have now has a single engine, so there's a lot less control versus something with a twin engine where you have a little bit more of a control in a small tight space.
We would want to offer the optimal maneuverability, whether it's bow and stern thrusters. We want to make this work, and that's why we're here talking and receiving as much feedback as possible. So
I've just got one question. How many more seats are you filling on this boat? I mean, you're running at 30 now. What would this do?
This boat is licensed for 200. I'm just saying this is the market. The next step from the 49 is Coast Guard classifications 149. This one's grandfathered into 200, but I just can't see 200 people. And I'm saying I don't want to bring 200 people at a time in this here, but what I'm saying is we need a bigger boat, but we need something that is a better customer experience when you have 30 or 40 people on it.
Well, and I'm actually talking with the school right now, and there's classes that want to secure the boat for spring, but they're in the 54 to 60 count. We can't handle that on our little boat right now. They'd have to go in 2 sessions, and they really don't want to do that. Teachers are not excited about that option. So, we are kind of in a bit of a rock and hard place, so.
I think everybody at this table was, unprepared for this discussion.
Yeah, we just wanted to throw it
That's
out
why
there.
Wanted to get here before the end of the year rather than have some time for.
I will say, from my perspective, watching the operation this summer is that, I don't know how you saw it, Michael, but I thought it went really well. I really didn't see any parking issues or people issues. It kind of worked the way we thought it was going to go down there. And so however you got to wherever you are, it seems to be working from my side of the table. That's what I thought we would be talking about today.
Yeah, well, we did, and then we thought, well, we may as well throw it out there, it's our only opportunity. But yeah, from an operations standpoint, with a complete change in, the operation team and our staff, it was a 180 from last year. It was just so smooth, and we had a dream team, we had professionals that just really upped our image, our customer service, just all around, we couldn't have been happier.
And I see in here, you're looking for an office space also, maybe?
So we have one. We feel like we're now
It's here in
graduated
Harbor, or is it in
to Petoskey. Mhm.
So you're not looking for any.
Mm-mm. Nope.
So in essence, your request is for a bigger boat that would handle maybe 2 or 3 times your maximum now, with the same type of setup, no parking commitment on this end, maybe a bigger dock.
Yeah,
How would you feel about that? Is that?
and honestly,
show?
looking at the number of people that we leave on the dock and the number of requests, I mean, we're probably in the less than 50 range on most days, and that would just be in the core of the
But
day.
if the boat is big enough to handle 100.5, you'd have to be prepared, or else we have to limit your ticket
That's
sales.
what we're proposing.
We can limit that, and we would want to, I think.
And you could tell us blackout dates, whatever, you say, hey,
Yeah.
we understand the 2 weeks around the 4th of July. It's already overload, you don't want us to exceed that, or other days, great, we could use the business in October for our downtown community. We're open to, that's why we're talking.
I can tell you though, sorry to, just like.
Well, I was gonna ask Michael for his comment on this stuff, because I did not hear from any negatives from kayakers that were interfered with the size boat we have now in there. And I don't think we had any conflicts with boaters at Fort Park with it, but if we have a boat that's 20 feet longer coming in and out, that's gonna be a little more of a plug up in that area. I don't know if it's, I'm not saying it's not manageable, but it's gonna be different.
That would be my primary concern. I think that should be the Harbor Commission's concern too. There's an awful lot of traffic down there in July, especially around the 4th. And if you get a boat that's potentially 20 feet longer, even though it's got twin screws and thrusters, that's still an awful lot of space, or minimal space that you guys have to operate.
Visibility is one of the things that, so I ran the boat probably 10 or 15 days last year, and about 7 to 10 days this year. I have to go back and count the exact number, but there's definitely a visibility thing with the current boat because of I call it a split level pilot house. It's not all the way up above, it's halfway up above, so you don't get the line of sight. And that would be something we'd be seeking on this boat, whether it's, we're talking about a significant investment. So whether it's adding more electronic monitoring with cameras on the back, or sounds stupid, but the school buses have a lot of mirrors for a reason, and it's the same sort of thing. They're odd shaped. It's just to know if there's something there. And to me, that was one of the primary things I was going over with the captains and deckhands. It was make sure you've got a second set of eyes every time you're going in and out of all of these docks, especially here with the paddle boards and the kayakers going in and out here. So
I guess my question is this a request for 2022 or for 2023? Because if it's for 2022, we'd have to go have another special meeting.
Yes.
Because I don't think we can hash this out right here, right now.
No.
So I'm just trying to figure out what they're actually looking for.
Mirror too, you talk about that boat density. I have, and I personally spoke to many of these, but, and also at the dock in Bay Harbor, there are a lot of people that chose to take the ferry to Harbor Springs in lieu of their own boat because of a lack of docking, which was interesting. Or if the weather was such that they didn't choose to come. There were, I would count probably more than 2 handfuls of people that we accommodated in that way. And they were so excited. They would walk by the ferry and talk to us and they'd say, oh my God, that's great. We don't even have to take our own boat. No, we'll take you over, bring you back. Oh my gosh, done.
So what we're seeking is your blessing of having a half-step larger boat coming into your community, and what your opinions are on the capacity limits, if any, and if we were to fund the necessary changes to the dock, would you be behind this improvement or the step forward, or is this something that just does not fit with the overall harbor's plan?
Okay, again, this is Laura Kors on Zoom, and my reaction to this is it's incredibly interesting to think about, but we had no prior knowledge that you were going to come and tell us any of this. So it's too much for me, if I were allowed to say, vote on anything, to step into it. I would have expected something given to us to have prior knowledge. I'm disappointed.
I'm sorry, I thought this was conveyed, it was gonna
Yeah,
be distributed.
sorry. I emailed it, but maybe for some reason we didn't get it.
I sent out this Tuesday or Monday, so I think you signed it.
Let me just throw this out there. I think we have a sense for what you're kind of looking for, basically. I agree with Laura. I need to think about this, and before we go, it's a high-class problem, so that's good. But I think we really need to, if you're serious about this and you're looking for an answer from this table for next year, that we need to schedule another meeting and deal with it. And we need to have a little more thought, and we would need a concrete plan.
Sure.
You should give us what you actually want us, that works for you on that thing, and then we'll see if it even fits. But I gotta think about how this would fit down in Fort Park.
I just have one more point too. I think that Kyle should be contacted about how this is gonna affect parking if there's 150 people parking to get on a ferry and.
Well, that's why I asked, if would the parking requirements be the same as we have now, which are virtually not here? There was no impact that I'm aware of with parking down at Fort Park because of this thing. So that would have to be part of their proposal, because we don't have it down there and we can't build it. And I'm not willing to give up the parking for the general public or the kayak users or the Fort Park users in a park that was built with waterways money just for those people for a private commercial operation down there.
Were most of your ticket sales round trip?
They were $20.
No, but if they were round trip, I mean, most of your ticket sales were round trip, or you do one way?
$10 one way. We sold them at one way.
Did you originate a lot of those numbers from Harbor Springs one way? Back in the time?
2000. So from Harbor Springs to Petoskey, for example. This year was 1,530. Last year was 2,349.
2,349?
One way.
Mhm.
A long walk, man.
Yeah.
Well, we found a lot of people because of the washout of the wheelway over there that's where, and we've needed the extra space. We underestimated the bicycle portion of this thing pretty dramatically, but a lot of people were actually, even without the washout, it's just one more kind of an excuse to go a one way on a bike and then catch
You
a
go
ferry
from
back.
breakfast to lunch, I get.
That was a
To
huge
Victor's
program.
question, are you looking to do this next year?
We would love to if we can pull it off.
I have the funding available to do this and perhaps this on a personal note, my family has taken the next step. We have secured a rental house. We're in the process of relocating to this community in this, not Harbor Springs directly, but in this region. And as we look for a more permanent home. So I would have a larger part in this operation up here. And if you gave me the blessing sooner, I have capital allocated, and this is a buyer's market right now. There's a lot of churn in this size, and I can't speak to what it will be a year from now, but I would like to make use of the off season to forward some of our planning and accordingly.
Victor, what I think we need, this is, certainly wasn't planning on dealing with this, but I think what we need from these guys is a proposal like we had before. Show us the boat, show us the size, what you need on the shore side. The same setup that you did before.
No problem.
And once we get that in our hands, if you actually think that you'd be willing to do this next year, then we would impose on everybody's time at this table to react to your proposal on that. But I want to make sure you're not spinning your wheels, because we don't want to put the time into it unless it's going to be fruitful for both of us.
Absolutely.
And I would think, yeah, Dick. Have you approached Petoskey and Bay Harbor yet?
Petoskey.
Petoskey is 100%, and Bay Harbor is working on their CDOC and finalizing their plans with that. And we've talked to a few independently, but not to their group at this point in time. So.
I have a question. On the current dock, does your current boat occupy the whole length of the dock right now? No, it doesn't.
Just the end of it.
So the extra 10 or 15, 20 feet would require to extend the dockage? Because I can certainly see a benefit to having a heavier boat that,
Twin screws, I never
yeah, for
understood. how
sure.
they
I
were
mean,
able to
trying
sit
to even docking it. for
And the
that
first dock,
size.
you knocked out most of the piling.
I mean, I think you're gonna raise, I think it'll increase the numbers of people traveling on it because of the comfort and the safety part of it. So that might drive the numbers up.
I'm not an engineer, but my gut tells me the T part's going away, and if you were to turn that lengthwise, it would be more of a slip with pilings. And the and I'm not an engineer, but I think that's probably what we're looking at, as opposed to, and however it is, there'll need to be more robust pilings for that kind of weight, so.
And that's gonna need winter maintenance, which we don't do with any of these things right now, so, we gotta put some thought into this.
Yeah, so I would recommend we get a proposal. When we get that proposal, JB will schedule a special meeting. From then we have a process. If Harbor Commission recommends it, goes to city council. So there's a lot that needs to happen here. So I think we should just table this for now and wait for a proposal and a few other items.
Should part of that package be talking to Cody Carmichael with flotation docks and see what he recommends? Along with it.
Well, if the applicant's gonna provide the upgrade to the
Well, I'm just
facility,
saying
then
that.
I'd probably leave the ball in their court, but we want to make it
That
fit in
information
with how
helps us.
everything looks around here and works around here.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna be living with it, so it's gotta work for us.
We share the dock with all the dinghies, and it's a great relationship, and we haven't had any problems, and we made it work, so we want to continue to do that.
Actually, the way it is, Chris, is that we share the dock with the ferry boat. Thank you. Review of Marina rates for 2022. Let's look at these on two different levels. Did everybody get that letter from the state that was in here too? Yeah. Interesting. Let's talk about the daily rates first. Last year, we were at rate 9, I think, Michael?
Schedule I on that chart.
Oop, that's season. I got the wrong. Schedule I on that. And the state allows us to pick any rate that we want. So I certainly am not in favor of going backwards. The rate was not negatively received, as I understand it, from customers down there. It's the same rate that was charged in Petoskey this year, so the neighborhood is all in the same bathtub. So the minimum, I think we had to stay with I, but the question is, we have the opportunity to stay will allow us to go up a little bit to J, and I wondered how everybody felt about that.
So it's like $4 to $6 per day per boat.
Right.
Round figures. What's our number of boat days?
Would anybody really notice? Yeah, would anybody even
I don't-
notice?
yeah, I think-
Yeah.
I stand corrected. Petoskey was an F this year.
2021.
I got that information from Mark Lennon the other day, so I apologize.
I thought we were at G and we went down to F. And
We
that's just-
were at E last year.
We started to raise it up to G and then we decided not to because it was too much of a big number, a big increase. I think.
We went back and revisited it. And I think that was dependent on the fear that COVID was gonna slow us down. And that wasn't the reaction.
So this past
So Michael,
year we
where
were
was
at I.
Petoskey then?
Petoskey's with F. And they're going to H next year.
Mike, we're at I.
We were at I.
We
yes.
were at.
Yeah, this year. Yeah.
Thank you.
I apologize for that.
So for a 35 footer, we'd be $10 about Petoskey, around roughly.
Well, if Petoskey goes to H, we'd be $10 more expensive.
Yeah.
Karen, I think your point's well taken. You pay more than that for a campground.
Oh, yeah. I mean, did anybody push back this year at all? No?
No,
When the supply's limited, you can charge more.
How did the distribution of the size of boats coming in change?
pardon me, Fred?
Did the distribution of size of boats coming in change?
It stayed pretty much the same from last year. We didn't see the big boats that we had, but we saw a number of boats. Average size is probably around 40 to 45 feet.
Okay, what did you do to boats 30 foot and under?
30 foot and under, kept us right about the same number.
Yeah, the wall was full of them most of the summer.
Yeah.
What would be the negative to going up to J?
That's a question for commission. Again, I don't think we've seen pushback.
But you're more likely to see it with boats that are 30 foot and under.
I kind of doubt it, Fred. I mean, if they're gonna pay that $48, I'm not gonna look to get another $4. But then again, I may be
That's what I
speaking for myself, right?
How many people did you have to turn away this year, Mike? Do you know offhand? How many?
Turn away?
Yeah, because you didn't have availability at average.
That's a really good question. I don't think we turned away a whole lot of people.
No.
No,
You had enough space.
we
for
all seem to
people
have
that came in.
space for people coming off the water. And that's even without a reservation system.
What were we at 2 years ago?
G,
G.
G.
So where people wouldn't bulk at $5 more, when you jump up 20 a day, just because we can doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Getting money is great, but if you just did what the market would bear, you could go anywhere. The state couldn't stop us, but is it the right thing to do to boaters?
Well, if you look at a 30-foot boat, it's only a $5 difference.
This year, but it's 15 from 2 years ago, and it keeps climbing, and just be cautious.
Yeah, I'm not advocating we go to J, I'm just saying that's our only opportunity.
I know that's the only place you
Stay
can
where we
go
are,
up to.
go up to that level.
How much did level I rise from last year? Is this a higher rate than?
These rates have been the same for the last 3 years.
So this, if we stayed at the same level, it would be the same dollar.
Yep. Now in 2023, the state is talking about raising those rates again. And I got that from their recreation harbor person, Lene Dawson.
So from 2020 to 21, for a 30-foot boat, it went up $9. Right? And you didn't get a lot of pushback.
No,
So if we went from a 30-foot boat from I to J, it's another $5. Half as much as what it was from this year to last year. It doesn't seem like a lot of money. I mean, we're paying the dock, we obviously pay it when we put our boat in the water.
We need to act on this tonight, so for today, hope it doesn't get to be tonight.
We're looking for a motion.
Yeah, that might help, but I don't think it's a loser either way if we stay there or we go up, it's just a matter of if we want. So somebody has an idea, get it out on the table tonight.
We moved to level J. For the difference in the day.
No.
So,
Okay, what about not having laundry? If you're gonna say by next summer you will have laundry, and because a 30-foot boat, you guys are just cruising for the day. If you're a 39-foot boat like I have, I'm coming here, I might need laundry and I need showers and I might need a boater's lounge. So if you're gonna move up to be almost the highest in this list of people, we have to offer those amenities. So we're not just talking about 30-foot boat. That's just a day. I'm talking about 40 and up, where they're gonna want some amenities, and especially if they're on sailboats, they're gonna want some amenities. So if we're gonna get it together with the laundry and that stuff for the next summer, then I think you could go up higher. But like a boat like mine, $250, and you don't have any of that stuff, I can tell you on the ICW, between $1.50 and $3, and you can get all that. So we need to offer a little more, especially since we don't have laundry and food anymore.
we have a motion on the table in a second.
Yeah, and you really didn't ask to talk, so I was being very nice to you.
Sorry,
I respect your opinion, but the ICW is way different. And here, I boated quite a bit in South Carolina. I can get a seasonal slip down there for my boat for a third of the cost I have here. That's not the point. The point is, here in Harbor Springs, what makes sense for us, given what we do provide and what our obligations are to provide back to the taxpayers, a return on their investment here at the water. We're not a private business, we're a little different setup, so we can't compare apples to apples with that. But we do have a motion on the table, and that is to go to
Level J.
level J, and it's been seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, good, do you want to do a roll call vote?
You have Fred Rockwoods,
No.
Tim Fletcher Rice,
No.
Dick Schiller,
Yes,
Karen Strout,
Yes.
Jim Bartlett,
I go last.
Bill McCullough,
Yes.
Flicka Reagan,
No.
Jim Bartlett.
So it's a tie?
It's a tie.
I'm
I'm gonna go last.
Chairman should go last. That's why you pay me the big bucks. I'm gonna vote no.
Okay, motion fails.
So I would make, you're not supposed to do that. I would make a motion that we charge the rate I as detailed in the 2022 transit rate sheet, but supplied by the state of Michigan.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Okay,
Okay.
roll call.
Another roll
Fred
call.
Rockwoods? Yes. Tim Fletcher Rice?
Yes.
Dick Schiller?
Yes.
Karen Strout?
Yep.
Jim Bart, oh, gonna go last, Bill McCullough.
Aye.
Flicker Reagan?
Yes.
JB?
Yeah.
All right, motion passes.
Great. Okay, on to seasons. This is more, well, maybe not more interesting. That was pretty interesting. But the state limits how much we can charge for transit, but they don't with seasonal. We are already, as we all know, significantly more expensive than any other public marina in the state of Michigan. And as you can see on this rate one list, let's pick a 40-foot or a 30-foot slip here at 3,300. We're almost 35% more expensive than that in here. So, and that's done on purpose. So we try and keep some balance between what the state would like us to charge and what the private marinas are able to generate out of their stuff, given the fact that we're trying to fit in there someplace in the middle. So that's been our MO over the years, where I think it's been pretty effective. And we certainly ought to do an inflationary adjustment, if nothing else, on this thing. And so I'd open up the table to discussion.
So our current rate right now for 30-foot is on the screen. That's $4,454. I don't exactly remember what we did last year, what percentage increase. I have the minutes from last year here.
I think we took a,
We raised it.
I know we raised it. I know the exact.
we've never not raised it. It's just a matter of what makes most sense on that.
It was 3%. We did 3%.
Yeah, we did a kind of a heavy inflationary adjustment.
Yes, 3%.
That's not true. We did not raise it during the, in 09 maybe, or 10, because of the crash. Anybody want to throw anything out there, or you want me to? I would move that we raise our seasonal rates from the existing level they are now by a factor of 4% across the board. The dock slips, the moorings, the dock slips and the moorings.
How did you come up with the 4%, JP?
It's because the CPI is somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, it's gonna be somewhere between 3% and 5% is what, and maybe that's a little heavier than inflation on it, but it's reasonable, I think, on that.
I'd be more comfortable with 3.
With what?
3.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'd be more comfortable at 3%.
I would like.
Well, then my motion hasn't been supported. I heard a second.
My opinion.
But no, you have to ask. See, we're a democracy, so what you do. If there's no second on my motion, then that fails for lack of support. So now the table's open again and we can do something else. So now this is when I make a motion.
I will move for 3% increase across the board.
Okay.
I'll second that.
So the motion's been made and seconded for 3% increase to seasonal dock slips and seasonal moorings.
So how is it that the increase is okay on the seasonals versus the daily, the transient rate?
Because our climb on the daily rates has been higher than inflation over the last little bit. We took a pretty good jump the last 2 years. Personally, I voted the way I did because I think we're gonna see an increase in the state rates next year, which will allow that to happen organically. And we've been way more than inflation on the daily side of it for the last 3 or 4 years. So that's why I voted the way I did. I can't explain everybody else's vote. That's also why I'm okay with an inflationary adjustment on the seasonal rates.
And your 3% came from what, Tim?
I'm probably more hopeful that we're gonna be on the lower side, but I'm feeling more of a squeeze. And anything that gets deeper into my pleasure pocket means that's less of it I can do.
Yeah.
So we have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Laura, you want to chime in on this? Is she still there?
She's still there, but
I don't see her.
there's a nice pool in the background.
She's out by the pool.
Is there a little umbrella in there?
No, again, just because you can, I don't always believe it's the right thing. An increased fine, 3%. If I were allowed to vote, I would probably withhold it and go for 2. We need money. We have things to do, but just because we can doesn't mean it's the right thing.
And before the council votes, I would just, from a staff perspective, costs don't go down, they go up. So we do need to eventually, we've noticed this with the city general fund budget, if you don't account for inflation, cost of operations go up, but our revenue doesn't go up. So that's my only comment on that.
And I think we have done that with the seasonal stuff. And I think we have with the daily stuff. We just did it in bigger chunks year before where we got ahead of that curve. That's always been at this table. You gotta account for inflation. That's all there is to it. So we have done that. Any further discussion? Let's do a vote then.
All right, Flicker Reagan,
Yes.
Bill McCullough,
Aye.
Karen Stroh,
Yes.
Tim Fletcher Rice,
Yes.
Fred Rafowitz, yes. Dick Schiller,
Yes.
and Jim Bartlett.
Yep.
Motion carries.
Victor, will these be at the 11-1 meeting in front of council?
Yes, hopefully, yep, they should. Gives me 2 weeks.
Great. Now on the fun part.
Are we gonna consider dinghy storage or kayak storage?
None of the motions included that, and we raised those significantly the last couple of years. So unless there's somebody wants to act on them, I'm comfortable where they are.
First off, I'd like to begin my report by acknowledging the strong effort my dock staff put into the docks this year. Had a great staff this year. I got lucky with Katie Likens and Laura Graham and Maggie Bailey coming back to us this year. This was Katie's 5th year with us. Might not see her back next year because she's moving on to bigger and better things. Laura Graham's talking about an internship. And then Maggie Bailey, you never know with her, she might go back to Alaska, I'm not quite sure. But Lily Graham and Abby Westmeyer joined the crew last year as new hires and they fit right into the team. Laura is related to Tom Graham, I think is her niece, and did a great job for us last year. So a solid team, gonna have a solid start to next season with those two and hopefully a couple more new hires as well. We started off with a great middle weekend of June as Marina hosted 25 boats from Boyne City Yacht Club. That club's been coming to us for several years now with anywhere from 10 to 15 boats. This year, they had a whole bunch of new members join the club and bought their new boats and brought those to us this year. That bumped their numbers up to 25 and they had a great time. Perfect weekend for them too. So that's a great way to start off the season. From that weekend on, the Marina was about 80 to 100% full almost every night. Regatta saw 27 race boats on the dock. And we had approved back in April, I think it was, the Detroit Athletic Club rendezvous that unfortunately fizzled out due to lack of interest. Some people had spoken up and said they want to be here. So, but that was a kind of a silver lining and let us fill the dock with boats coming off the water and boats on a not insubstantial wait list to begin August. So that worked out really well for us. Overall, I had to say we had a pretty solid season. Total boat registrations in 2020, and this is a bunch of duplicate registrations as well, and includes transient moorings. We were at 772 in 2020. In 21, that number went up to 792. Boat days for this year, we're at 3,500. Last year, we're at 4,069. That big increase last year, the difference last year was all the moorings were able to accommodate. And we also saw a lot more being able to fill docks with boats because we had a number of people decide they weren't going to utilize that mooring last season. Because we did waive that 29-day rule last year. Let's see, we also have a set of numbers that I included in that sheet as well. Dockage, seasonal dockage in 2021 was at $205,000. Last year, $199,000. Transient dockage saw a substantial increase this year, almost 25%. We're at $169,000 in 2020. This year, we ended up the season at almost $211,000. So that was pretty solid. Seasonal moorage was up this year to $76,000 versus $72,000 in 2020. A dinghy and kayak storage, we sold a number, we probably oversold the non-seasonal dinghies this year. We're going to try to eliminate that problem next year, but the 16,000 in 2020, 21,000 for this year. Lawn tramp was about the same from last year, maybe a little bit down, which kind of surprised me, but that lawn tramp number includes over 100, we have almost 200 seasonal permits this year.
Yeah.
And we were none, something like 175 the year before, so that number was up. Electric sales were about almost $1,000 from the year before. Ice sales are pretty steady. We got rid of the pop machine, which was a huge bonus this year. So our seasonal totals were at $537,000 versus $491,000 for last year. So we were up 9% from the season before. Pretty solid. And that's about what I have to say to you guys. I want to thank Victor for his support all season long. To the Harbor Commission for your support. And I can't thank Kathy Sadison enough. I wish she was still with us, but Kathy's moved on to West Traverse Township, but Bridget Lemire is stepping right into her shoes and do a great job for us. So. And thank you all for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. You're almost there. A couple more days.
Yeah. And I apologize for that mistaken identity for Petoskey's race.
Any questions for Michael? They have a hard time finding staff like everybody else in town, or were you okay with that?
Nope.
Do you think you're in that same boat for next year?
I don't think so. No. I think word gets around that it's a pretty good job to have for sure.
Very cool.
F4,
Pardon me?
you want to move on to F4, which is stadium lighting? which you
Yes.
had suggested?
Just a comment, the school upgraded their lights this year from the old mercury halide probably to LED lights. We did have a comment from a local boater about that, making it more difficult, he felt, to get in and out of town. I noticed the brightness too. The last week I've been coming back at dark a couple of times on there. And I don't know that there's much that we can do about that except to ask the school to make sure that they are containing as much of their light on their property and not letting it escape out by making sure they're aimed properly.
I'll talk to the school because that is our property, but they lease it from us for the game. So I'll talk with them and see if there's a way to contain the lighting.
It is clearly more brighter.
It is brighter.
Without a doubt on that. And I would bet they're able to minimize some of that by taking that into account. The other one was, we did have a request, Michael, maybe you could deliver this from Boyne City Yacht Club for next year.
For Boyne City wants to come back this season, seeking your approval to bring the group to us this year because it's a pretty sizable group. I was taken by surprise with the number of boats that showed up this June. I don't want you guys to be overwhelmed by the number of boats that show up on the dock that all at Boyne City Hillport. So seeking Harbor Commission approval to do the same this year with their 25 boats.
What weekend was it?
It's the middle weekend in June. I think next year it's going to be the 12th, 13th, and 14th.
So there's so many that we're displacing other people?
No, and that's the fortunate part about it.
Anybody want to make a motion to approve the Boyne City Yacht Club rendezvous for middle of June next year? I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Dick, and seconded by Karen. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same for opposed. Great, thank you. One quick update on lake level, we're 15 inches down than we were a year ago right now. They're predicting 2 feet down by February, which only puts us a foot above long-term average. So we're kind of back in the ballpark here. It just amazes me how fast that can go.
We have to be dredging in a few
So
years.
if anybody wants to help take those platforms.
That's what you're doing. I would save them. That's for sure.
One more thing, I'm probably going to bring this to you at our special meeting. We're being approached by the Grosse Pointe Yacht Club with another rendezvous. We did one with them in 2020. They want to bring back 35 boats. I've already told them that's way too many boats. And they're also looking at coming the weekend after regatta. I've told them that's not going to work either. So they went back to the powers that be. They're going to put together an approach to us.
They want to come regatta weekend.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
I was in one.
I see our next regular meeting down here is June 8th, but why don't we schedule the March meeting now? We're obviously gonna have something to talk
Well,
about.
I would say, because we're probably gonna have a special meeting if they bring us a,
Yeah, but let's schedule the March one and we can cancel if we don't have an agenda, but I'd like to get it on everybody's calendar now at least, because I don't know when your proposal's gonna get here.
I like that timing.
So you think that might work for your proposal?
Yeah.
That wouldn't give you enough time to get a dock built and a boat here, would it? Doesn't seem like it.
March or April? April is what I thought I had.
Well, I was kind of trying to get between when the licenses are coming and.
They probably need to come in earlier.
Lots of people
What's
gone
better
in
for me is
April.
April, I want to be gone.
Everything's supposed to be done in April.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Would March work for you guys? And work for you guys?
Let's do a poll. I was gonna pull out to the Harbor Commission members on what day works this week.
Oh, we're only missing a couple.
Well, we're missing 3, but
So,
I wouldn't make it in April.
and we have,
yeah, I think April might be a challenge.
we also have,
And May's too late.
Not late March either.
we also have 5 appointments coming up in December that may change things. I don't know, just a cautionary thing.
I'm thinking the 16th. I mean, can we put that out there? We can change it if it doesn't work.
Sure.
Would March 16th work for everybody? I think we're smart to get a date. Laura, Tuesday, are you hearing that?
It's a Wednesday.
I think it's a Wednesday. isn't it?
Yes, it is Wednesday.
It's not last year, March, it's next year.
Yes, 16th is a Wednesday.
Okay, next regular meeting then is March 16th at 4 o'clock here in City Hall. I'm sure we got room. We got board review or anything going on? I wonder if I got.
4 o'clock, we never have anything going on. Except for the 15th.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your time. It's great to have a full house in a discussion. Thank you. There'll be more, I'm sure.